I found out so much about what people want to do with social media. A lot of the questions were about how it can be used effectively with so many choices. What are the best uses of people's time? Should you use Twitter? How can sites like CREOpoint help? What are the differences between the purely social stuff such as Facebook?
Is covering the different generations, and I think what is clearly relevant for all of us, as the younger generation come up through their profession, the actual use of social media will become the norm rather than the exception. And as an industry and as a property profession, I think we either adapt or die. And I think particularly it's media such as CREOpoint that allow us to engage with each other. And I think we should all be seeking to actively contribute.
Because we believe that collaboration is the way forward, and sharing information and social networking is all about that. Our only concern in the past has been separating business from personal networking, and I think CREOpoint is going to be a great way of making that separate.
So social media is very important to me, because in the absence of a big company and an office, the social media environment becomes my office.
The room was mostly early adopters and therefore had a much heightened sense of how they can use social media in their own careers. It was also interesting in listening to how the different people from BNP have different experiences with social media based on their prior experiences, depending on their ages and whether their children are using it, whether they're using it, and how that's helping them establish them.
Maybe a sense that the industry as a whole is quite conservative. Perhaps there's too many questions about why and why not at the moment, particularly given that social media requires giving up time but not money. And I think really, I think we start to investigate some of the reasons and the barriers for adoption, and really the importance perhaps of a sector which is predominantly led by people who are in perhaps the later part of their careers, really starting to embrace the people coming into their business who understand a lot more about how these things work and are after all going to be in new leadership.
We do quite a lot in property, and we're looking to build our business around social media. We see it being the most important change that's occurred for a long. I think it's very good. Yeah, I think it's got one of the largest adoption rates and user bases out there, certainly for property, and I think it's got a very high standard of member.
I found that the organisation looked quite good, and also I think the leadership helps. JC contacted me in response to one of my viewpoints. Led me to feel that there was more credibility with this particular network, and also organising this breakfast to actually meet other members takes it out of the virtual.
It's a great idea, a great starting point. I want to see it move into much more of a global field and become something that you're just as likely to use if you're in Asia or Europe.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, interestingly enough, to my surprise, 20% of our traffic comes from China, and we have members in 50 countries.
Excellent.
Some that I've never been.
Use a relatively restrictive model for invites, and yet you have such a broad distribution across the 50 countries as you just mentioned. So that must say that people have these networks that they're referring others into, rather than just a traditional viral.
About globalisation for quite a long time. The reality is that for both the real estate industry and many of the occupiers of property, it's a comparatively new thing, and I think people are trying to find their way around it still. That means making it work and going into fields where you don't necessarily already know the players, and I think CREOpoint is an excellent way of establishing that sort of forum, and also a great platform for people establishing the sorts of links there.
We'll reconvene, I guess, online on CREOpoint, and for some of us, maybe earlier or maybe at MIPIM.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.